Welcome to the Business for Aligned Women podcast. I'm Honey. I'm a coach working primarily with women and specializing in aligned business, personal transformation, and embodiment. Each week here I'll be sharing business strategy, business advice, tips and tools for you to think more deeply, for you to get more self-aligned, and for you to start your week in the most conscious and intentional way possible. Welcome to this week's episode. This week I'm going to be talking about some end of year reflections that I have and what I'm manifesting and calling in 2024 for you and for our shared space and our shared community. Before I get started, I wanted to let you know that I currently have a listener survey. This is about a 2-minute survey that is asking all of the questions so that I can get to know you a little bit better. I can get to serve you better. I can give you what you need, and I can shape what I'm talking about, the length of the episodes, and really make sure that I'm giving you exactly what you need in 2024. I would absolutely love for you to take 2 minutes out and please fill out this survey. If you love the podcast, if you listen to it every week, or if you enjoy it, please be a part of this conversation so that I can just make it even more beneficial for you. And if you do fill out that survey, you will go into the running to win access to my next major training. It's going to be a self-led training with a couple of live Q&A calls. It's going to be happening sometime in March, and it is my first group of what I'm calling the Content Club. And I will be running these again, and they are looking at how we can actually just get in, ideate, come up with the idea, and action and schedule, and really get on top of content creation and content marketing, because it seems to be one of the biggest things that my audience struggles with. And this one coming up in March is all about how to come up with a podcast idea, how to physically create the podcast, physically schedule it, all the tech, all the things that you need to know, and also some insight into creating a podcast that is actually going to make you money. This podcast has made me at least $150,000. I can definitely help you make something that's profitable. And if you've been thinking about it, or if it's on your 2024 list, or if you're like not sure how to start, that training would be really good for you to join in on. You can't actually join it yet. You have to just keep your ears peeled. But if you go and fill out that survey, you'll go in the running to win it. Okay, lucky last little bit of admin for you. I am just letting you know that there's only 3 spaces left for Subtle Alchemy in March. This will start at the very beginning of March, and this is a 6-month-long one-to-one gentle business coaching container. If you have any questions about that, please feel free to book in a call with me. I do offer 15-minute calls. They're completely no strings attached, and it's not a situation where you get on the call and I'm like selling to you. You'll probably get a little bit of advice in that call, because I'm so solution focused that I just can't help but give away complimentary advice in those calls. And booking a call doesn't necessarily mean that you will come into coaching. Sometimes we realize that it's not right for you. It's definitely not like you're going to come in and I'm going to give you the heavy hand about signing up, which is something that I've experienced in sales calls before, and I find it really, really awful. This is really a chemistry call. We're checking if our chemistry, if we're aligned, if we're right for each other, and it's a space for you to ask any questions at all. Nothing is too silly, to make sure that it is the right offer for where you're at right now. So always you can book a free call with me, and just letting you know there's only 3 spaces left, and then that won't open up again until I think September. So if you're thinking, oh, I'll do it next year, and I am having a lot of conversations with people where they're saying, I'm planning on working with you next year, just FYI, I have a few spaces left for March, a few spaces left for May, and then after that, I won't have anything until September. So that's like 10 months away. So please make sure that you book and organize this all ahead of time, because yeah, I am booking out for most of 2024 at this point. Okay, cool. I'm going to talk about my reflections from this year, and then I'm going to talk about some wishes that I have for you that maybe you could put on your manifestation list, or you could create some affirmations, or you could just get a bit more conscious around, so that we can kind of, I think,
my wishes for you are things that 99% of you need. And if you brought it into your conscious awareness a bit more, I think it would easily shift for you. So it's been a really funny year for me. It's gone really, really quickly. I know everyone says that, how boring, but it's been a very insular year. I've only seen friends like a handful of times. I haven't really done anything exciting. I've gone on 3 solo trips in Australia by myself. I realized I haven't been on an international trip since pre-COVID, and definitely COVID and lockdown, like we couldn't really travel for I think a year and a half or maybe even 2 years. I don't know. There was a long time there where we couldn't really do international travel. And I was really freaked out about international travel with COVID and things locking down and getting stuck somewhere or having to go to hospital in a foreign country, all that kind of stuff. It really did psychologically make me go, I'm not cool on travel anymore. And then when we did get out of lockdown, I realized I'd created some pretty severe flight anxiety. I've always hated flying, but I used to also really like it because I understood that it was part of the process and it was, you're on holiday and all of that kind of stuff. And now I really, really, really struggle with it. And in my recent little trip, I paid a ton more money just to go with an airline that I felt safer with. And on the way there, it was perfect. And I had almost no anxiety. And on the way back, it was like a tiny airplane and it was just so much turbulence. And turbulence when we were landing. And I'm like, what? You're not supposed to be jingling around when you're landing. So I haven't been on any international trips for that reason, because I was freaked out. And then I've developed this pretty serious flight anxiety. But I've recently realized I'm feeling quite itchy in my life. I'm feeling like something, like I need to go and do something, but there's not really anything to go and do. Going and doing the same things that I would normally do, like going to the nursery or buying myself a bunch of flowers or going out for coffee or lunch or going for a little drive to Starbucks and the bookshop, which is like a routine that I do every few weeks to really nourish myself. I drive and I get my Starbucks and then I go to the bookstore and I just peruse, and there's a little antique jewelry store as well that I have spent a lot of money at over my life, and I go there and I look at the jewelry and I probably make a couple of purchases and I come home and that kind of nourishes me. And all of that stuff isn't quite. I think it's because prior to COVID, I did travel a lot, at least 2 international trips per year, and I did a lot of helping out on yoga retreats and going to yoga retreats overseas and all of that kind of stuff. So I'm like, okay, I think it has to happen. And yeah, that is on the cards and the plan for next year at some point, which is something that you do have to think about and you have to plot and plan when you're running your own service-based business, because you'll have commitments and you'll have committed to seeing someone, for 6 months or for 3 months or for 10 weeks, whatever it is. And you have to be there at that time, and you can't just be unprofessional and chop and change and reschedule things. You just need to be committed. So that's kind of on the forefront of my mind at the moment, is finding a little bit more traction and excitement and interest in my everyday life. And I mean, I have so much to do. There's so many things that I could do. So looking for an escape might be a bit of self-sabotage. But that was my cat catapulting herself against my bedroom door. She does this thing where if she wants to be somewhere, she will just hurl her entire rather large body and smack herself against the door and then slide down like in a cartoon. It's quite hilarious, but she'll just do it endlessly until you open the door. She's a funny girl. Maybe you can hear her purring as well. So it's been a really quick year. I feel like the months just zoomed by when I think about working with people in a 10-week block. That has just felt like 2 weeks, and the people that I work with for 6 months and longer clients, we're kind of looking at it and going, oh my God, we've only got 1 or 2 months left together. So it's a really interesting vibe. And at the same time, this is probably the year in my life that I have had the most leisure and also the most relaxation. So in terms of hours, the amount of hours I've spent doing self-care, restorative practice, looking after myself, exercising is probably more than I've ever done in my entire life. And that is interesting and speaks to what I was talking about a couple of weeks ago in terms of it's also been my most financially abundant year of my entire life. I've made more money this year that I've ever made. And it's really interesting to actually reflect and go, well, I did do quite a bit. And I did do the vast majority of things that I set out to do in terms of my plan for the year in my business. And I did have a lot of leisure time and I made the most money. And I guess I'm telling you this because it's a bit of an indicator that the concepts that I push with my clients, things like only launching 3 things a year, things like planning 12 months ahead, not just doing random ideas when they pop up, but actually having a plan as to what you're going to be doing each month and working towards that over a long term. It does work. And it also creates this feeling of ease and leisure and relaxation and self-care. And that's something that I've been thinking about a little bit recently. I was talking about it yesterday on my stories and ruffled a few feathers about this. I think a lot of people call it this masculine energy kind of concept in business. I will do a podcast separately on that because it's really problematic. Like, it's really problematic from like its efficacy and also from gender roles and patriarchy and keeping women small. It's very, very problematic. But I've noticed that there are a lot of people who work with me saying that they want my masculine energy to come in and kind of give them structure and all of this kind of stuff. But the reality is, when we pull the curtain back on their business, they're spending way more time in their masculine go, go, go action energy than I am, because they're working all the time. Because they've not set up any systems or any structures, they're on their phone, their emails, their Instagram, like 8 hours a day, 7 days a week. That is not my life. And I would die if it was. Like, that's crazy. So I want you to understand, if you see my business and you see me being straightforward and structured and what a lot of people call masculine, that's actually enabling a wild amount of ease, which is what I would think of as feminine. And all of this getting yourself organized and setting it all up and planning ahead, the point isn't to be rigid. The point is because when you do that, there's space to breathe. And it allows me to be spending this many hours looking after myself and reading 130 books in a year and doing my mnemonic compression and my infrared sauna and gym and restorative yoga and gardening and all this stuff, that if I was just in that no system, no structure, you'd be in that more revved up state a lot more. But as you can tell, I could go down a rabbit hole on that, and I think I should probably do an episode on it. If you're interested in those concepts, send me a DM so that I know. When saying that, having the most leisure and relaxation time of any year, it's a given that it's one of the years that I haven't worked as much. I think last year I was very burnt out and I really didn't work at all, almost last year. And this year I worked more than last, but by no means did I feel in any form of hustle or any form of push. And I have had periods in my business when I did feel like that. But this year has been just beautifully soft. And to be honest, like, one of the biggest personal hurdles that I have at the moment is trying to navigate where my softness and taking care of myself and where my needing to move my body and get that fire started begins and ends. I did just buy an Oura ring this week after I've had so many clients telling me how amazing they are. So maybe that will help me with that. But it's a really difficult thing when you're not really feeling that well in your body to know where is the line of restoration and where is the line of the slowness and the gentleness is coming into actually not doing good. Like it's not actually benefiting you. So I've read 130 books. I said that before, and that's one of these little dot points that I have in front of me because that's an indicator to me that I really allowed myself to enjoy myself this year. I did spend a lot of time reading and listening to books, and I really prioritize that. And one way that I know that I'm in a good mental state, and it is something that I gently track in my journal, is if at nighttime I don't spend time watching TV and I actually spend time instead reading a book. And the more that I do that, the more I feel like myself. Don't get me wrong. I love TV. I love the Kardashians. I love British Bake Off. I love Made in Chelsea. You know, lots of other more highbrow TV shows that I can't think of right now. There's a lot of things that I love, but if I do that most of the time, I'm not really being my authentic self. My authentic self is to be very insular and quiet and on my own and introspective. That is me saying to you, this is the sign to find what you love and do it unashamedly, whether that's reading books or jogging or gardening or creating for Instagram, like whatever that is. I hope this year you can find a little bit more time to do that. And I'll talk about this a little bit more later on, but there's definitely a little bit of social pressure there of being the person who spends so much time alone and reading and just with their pets. Like every now and then I'll get this big wave of like, you're such a loser. You know, I've had periods in my life where I've been excessively social and I've had millions of friends, and that's not this period right now. And it's really interesting to feel that come in and go, no way, not letting you in to my experience right now. I'm doing what I love and I'm really enjoying it. I hope you can't hear Cinnamon snoring in the background. One of the biggest shifts for me this year that I have actually spoken about on the podcast is a point where I was feeling really unwell and dealing with some health stuff, and I'd been to the doctor and it was just such an unhelpful experience. And I do everything right. I really take care of myself. You know, my diet's pretty good, exercise, get acupuncture, like all that stuff. And yet nothing was getting better. And I was driving my car and I was on the verge of tears about it. And I decided that I wasn't going to keep searching for a cure. And I said to myself, you searching for a cure or hoping that something is going to fix this is what's sabotaging you, because you need to just make the lifestyle changes that are going to really set you up and support you as best you can. That's all you have to work with here. And as soon as I made that change and that mental shift, and I decided that I was going to be accountable to the lifestyle changes rather than looking for this external fix, everything opened up. And it was like so much abundance came through, so much more physical wellness came through, so much feeling better about myself, so much able to be consistent, so much more positivity came through from that choice. And I'm not saying that choice is something that other people need to make, but I do think there's a point there around when you decide to be accountable to the way you want to feel or the things that you want to achieve, it really creates a lot of power rather than being in victim mentality. And the victim mentality is such an interesting thing, and it's something that I'm actively working with a therapist to help me communicate to my clients how harmful it is to them. And if you're listening to this and that concept of victim mentality triggers you a little bit and you're like, oh, I feel like I probably am that, I just really want you to understand that it's being in that state, it is going to slow any progress. Yeah, I could even say it's going to like block any progress. But more than that, it's just fucking exhausting. I did a reel and TikTok on it this week, and a lot of people really resonated. It's really exhausting speaking to clients who are in that state. And just, if you're listening to this and you're thinking about that, I want you to know that it's scientifically proven that if you bring up trauma outside of a therapeutic space, and if you bring it up often, it reinstates that trauma in your nervous system. So every time you bring it up, every time it's your reason to not do the thing that you know you need to do, you are making that experience in your body and your nervous system more concrete and worse. I want to talk about some things this year that I've worked out really work best for me. And I can do another episode on that if you like. But things like morning routines, getting up as early as I can, really having that time, space, and quiet when even my dogs are still sleeping, to meditate and journal and do any other practices, really, really helps me manage my stress levels and really helps me not be reactive in my day-to-day experience. I mean, we all know that, but I just want to reiterate it again for you. And also really working out which external tools work for me. I'll be coming up to the 3rd year in a row that I have exclusively used my monthly Notion board for personal goal planning and my yearly Notion board for my business. I've been using that for 3 years. I only just released it for you guys to buy it, but I've been using it for 3 years myself. Those tools, they're under $15 and they work well, because I've used them for 3 years. And sometimes you want to get something new, get something different, maybe for the new year, but I can just look back and I have the data to say that those are probably the most supportive things that I do, plus a daily journal. And I talked about it before, but again, just really sitting in my total pride about my desire for solitude. Solitude is actually one of my highest values. So it is quite ridiculous that I get in my head about it. But a desire to spend time alone. And I enjoy when I spend time with people, probably more so because of how much time I spend alone. And rather than feeling bad or like a left out or a loser, just really honoring that power in that choice of doing that. And I feel like a lot of people listening to this podcast, are in the same boat and are quite similar. And I want to give you permission that it's okay to be like that. I have recently kind of up-leveled in my business by taking on some support. I have hired a therapist specifically to help me work through the emotional stuff that my clients come to me with. Even though I'm a business coach, I'm not a therapist, and I'm not going to try and give you therapy, and that's not part of our contract. You guys do come to me with a lot of stuff, and I'm trying to find the most ethical ways to move forward and know how to kind of tell you where to get support without seeming uncaring. And I've only had one session so far, and it's been crazy. Like the stuff that we've realized and the patterns that are going on and nutting out why they're going on has just been totally crazy. And I guess I want to flag that because there are a lot of business coaches out there who don't give a crap, and they would just literally shut it down. And while sometimes it does get to the point of excess oversharing and I do have to shut it down, I'll always try and listen and be supportive and give solution-based advice. But I am doing that self-work, that back-end work to ensure that I can hold that space for you, not as a therapist, but as your business coach, while being sensitive to what's going on for you. I've also taken on a VA, which it's been a long time since I've had a VA in my business, and I'm really excited for the next couple of months to see what happens there. And if you don't know, I have talked about a little bit on Instagram. Hiring the VA, hiring the counselor, it's all part of this up level that's happening in my business at the start of next year. I am doing a full rebrand. The business will still be the same. There is no change to my offers. I will still offer the same thing, do the same thing, and all of that kind of stuff. It's literally the name will change and the way it's going to look will be different. And I will talk about the rebranding process, why I did it, how I did it next year, if you're interested in that. But I'm really excited about it because energetically, I know that it's going to make me feel so much more proud in my business. And that is just going to have a flow and effect to every single aspect of it. Another thing that I have really been loving lately that I want to share with you, some of you are going to roll your eyes at and say that is so, I don't know, privileged or unattainable or whatever, is no phone time. And what I mean by that is Friday night at about 6 p.m, I turn my phone off and I don't turn it on again until 9 or 10 a.m. on a Monday morning. And I'm setting up systems in my business to make sure that that doesn't mean I have no online presence for the weekends. I'll still have online presence, but my phone is off and in a drawer. And I'm doing that because of my stress levels, because of my nervous system dysregulation. And I know it's not like a fix to say just have no phone, but we didn't have mobile phones until I was like 16 years old. Like I lived 16, half of my life with no phone. So actually having the phone is the aberration and the difference. And it is the number one nervous system resetting, calming, regulating thing that I have ever experienced in my life. And I know it is something that I suggest to my clients if they're quite jacked up. And I will just let you know that when I do that, of course, I still feel a bit like, oh, I want to check something, I want to post something. That dissipates really quickly. Like by 11 a.m. Saturday, that's gone. And what it's replaced with is extreme tiredness. I just get extremely tired, probably for that Saturday. And then Sunday, I feel really refreshed. And Monday, I feel much more refreshed. And I think that wave of extreme exhaustion is a sign of how jacked up the phone makes my nervous system. If you have some time where you don't need to be as accessed as you usually do, give it a go and see what happens, because it's just brought me back so much joy and the ability to be present and easeful. So I do live by yearly and monthly themes. My yearly theme for the year was advocating for myself. It started out as peace, and then I realized I couldn't have peace if I didn't advocate for myself. And what that really means is setting boundaries, expressing myself, providing context and explaining myself where I need to, and ensuring that I have all the systems set up so that I can thrive in the way that I need to and take care of myself. Next year's theme is the year of up-leveling and taking exquisite care of myself. There is definitely going to be an up-level experience occurring. I can already tell that energetically, but balancing that out with being hyper nourishing to me. And it will be a test for me to find that boundary of when is hyper nourishing and resting harmful, and where do I get that happy medium of healthy movement and action and rest and restoration. That's me. That was my year. That's where I'm at. Let's finish up with my wishes for you. And I'm sure a lot of them will cross-correlate with what I was talking about myself. My number one wish for you in 2024 is to just get the fuck out of your head and into your physical body. I know these terms like grounding and stuff can be quite patriarchal, but you guys overthink so much. No one really comes into my sphere who doesn't excessively overthink and agonize over things that aren't relevant. I want to make it crystal clear for you, just in case you're thinking that everyone feels like this or that's just what business is like. I do not agonize over a single thing in my business. I do not agonize over what to say in content or a podcast. I do not agonize over my offers. I do not agonize over my sales. I do not overanalyze what's going on. There is absolutely none of that in my business. Absolutely turning yourself inside out constantly in your business is not normal, and it's not sustainable. It will lead to burnout, and it's actually not going to ever make you successful. A lot of entrepreneurship is making quick decisions and owning those decisions. So my biggest top number one priority wish for you is that you just stop putting so much energy into your thoughts and your thinking and get into your physical body. And that might also mean getting into taking action. And this is a little call out to anyone who did my mastermind. That was back in September. And I'm still having conversations with you guys in December. And you're still telling me that I'm still working this out. I'm still thinking about it. I'm still hashing it out. No, you shouldn't be taking that long to do that. You should have been in a state of action in October. My dog is snoring so loud. The next wish I have for you is to stop using labels and binaries and personality types to keep you small. Labels, diagnoses, and types should only be used to the extent that they are helpful and they support you. If you start using these and they are creating limitations, like I should not do that, I can't do that, I'm not supposed to do that, that's not in alignment with this X thing that I got off the internet, please stop, because they are really, really sabotaging your success. So that can apply to, your astrology, human design, I don't know, Chinese medicine type, Ayurvedic type, Myers-Briggs, Enneagram, all of those kind of things. I see you all keeping yourself small because you've made a little fence for yourself around what's possible for you because of those ideas from those labels. And I just ask you to only take what is actually beneficial and supportive, and to anything that is going to limit you to take it with a grain of salt. The next one is a big one, and we all know that I think this way. To stop letting your past dictate your future. I'm not going to trauma dump on you, but I left home when I was 15 years old. And that wasn't because my home life was so lovely. I've been hit by cars. I've been ran over by a car on a bike. Like, all this fucked stuff has happened to me. And if I brought that into every day, I would be catatonic and probably in a psych ward. Like, we need to go, this happened, I'm working on it, I'm getting the support I need, but I'm moving forward in my life as well. And I'm not letting these circumstances or these experiences dictate the rest of my life. This is a little bit more basic one. I really want you to stop creating businesses and coming up with business ideas without getting expert support or doing market research, and then putting tons of pressure on such a flimsy structure, which then becomes resentful and frustrated because it's not working. It's very specific, isn't it? Lots of you do this. Please stop saying, I'm just going to create this business because I like this thing, or I find it interesting, or I think it's trendy. Like, you need to look at the viability of a business before you put tons of energy behind it and then wonder why it's not working. And that is something that you can do with the coach. A lot of people come to me with the business ideas, or they have multiple different things, or they've come to me with one thing, and I will just explain to them why it's never going to financially succeed, and we'll work out a better way to do it, or a different option, or a different skill set that is actually going to make money and get them out of that resentment and frustration cycle. I wish that you would commit to being consistent on the path to your goals. Stop biting off more than you can chew, and just do a little bit until you're consistent in it, and then only build up from there. I've had a lot of questions this week from people being like, for instance, I had, a beautiful client who I absolutely love, and this is a good example, so I'm using it, but it's nothing against her. You guys say stuff like this to me day in, day out. She's like, oh, TikTok looks like they're pushing 30-minute videos. They might be. And that would probably be for people who already have an audience. But more importantly than that, if you haven't been consistent in posting 15-second videos, what on earth do you think you're going to be able to do posting a 30-minute video? We need to stop looking for hacks and quick fixes and just start to build momentum and consistency in a way that is in alignment with us, and stop looking outside of ourselves for the fix. And usually in looking outside of ourselves for the fix, we're biting off way, way more than we can chew, which is one of the biggest things that I do as a business coach, is actually tell people to calm down and to stop and slow down and do one thing and finish it and then do the next thing. I ask that you will see that there is more to life and that your life should be enjoyable and that you shouldn't always be in a state of agonizing or anxiety or overthinking or analysis paralysis. There is more for you, and I, as your coach, am guiding you to a life that is more similar to what I spoke about. My life was like this year, where I worked very little, I had a lot of ease, and I had a ton of abundance. I wish that for the new year, you would show up for yourself in ways that you know your core essence deserves and craves. And what I mean by that is a lot of you are getting guided and making decisions and choices and have behaviors by what's trendy or what's cool or what you think you should do or what you think you're supposed to be doing or being guided by. Whereas if your deep essence really wants something, I would love for you to stop getting so distracted and just listen. And if you do that, it will really give you a lot of space to nourish yourself because you'll be actioning in a way to move forward rather than constantly getting distracted and getting caught up in shiny carrots. I wish that this year coming up is the year that you finally take action. The year that you move out of analysis paralysis and allow you to learn on the job a little bit. A lot of conversation, I've had like 4 people ask me this week, what exact things should I post and what time of day should I post? And is there a ratio of this and that of posting for content? And the reality is a lot of those specifics will only come from data. And until you start doing it consistently, you won't have that data. So you can actually never grow and progress because you haven't got the sample information that you need in order to know how to respond to those questions and those decisions. So there is a little bit of setting things up, getting organized, creating the bare bone structures, and then learning on the job. In the same vein, I wish that you would stop dog paddling on your future. It took my business 2 years to get to 6 figures. And it's taken me another 2 years to really blow 6 figures out the water. It's not going to happen overnight. It's not going to happen instantly. And I would love for you to Google the stats on how many businesses don't make a profit in their first year. So when you're kind of pushing it off, and then you're putting more and more and more pressure on it, it's not equivalent to the reality of the ecosystem that you're operating within. So start now. Get the help you need and start making gentle, slow, sustainable movements forward. Lucky last wish for 2024 is that you will hold yourself to the regard that I hold you at, to the level that I hold you at, because I hold you at that regard because I know how capable you are. And it can be scary when you work with a coach and the way they view your potential is up here. And actually the way you're showing up for your life is way lower than that. But if you started to see yourself through my eyes just a little bit more, you would be wildly excited about next year and all of the years beyond. We talked about a lot of stuff today. We went a lot of places. I hope it was fun. Podcast is taking a break. And the podcast will be back on February 5th. So I think that's the first Monday in February. And yeah, it is a bit of a long break. And yeah, I did agonize for about 4 minutes on whether that was okay, because a little bit of lack mentality, a little bit of scarcity. Oh my God, if I'm not on every week, will I lose people? But this is really aligned for me. And I think it's also really aligned for you guys. I would prefer to be consistent in blocks and taking scheduled breaks than not being consistent for you. So if you're like, oh, what am I going to do until February? Go back to the start, binge me on TikTok. I post on TikTok every single day. So there's always stuff happening there. And on TikTok, I do also have playlists. So you can actually go through and there's a bit of a curated selection there. Check out my trainings for over the summer period, especially if you have some time where you can do a little bit of back-end work on your business when things are a little bit quieter, if they are in your business, and grab the yearly business planner to set yourself up for the year ahead. I do also have a little self-work workbook in my shop at the moment. It's called the Intentional Year Workbook. I only put it in my shop for a couple of weeks, and that is a personal reflection piece and a guide to setting intentions that are sustainable and actually rooted in that core essence that I was talking about before. Have a beautiful festive holiday season. Have an amazing start to the new year. Have an amazing Capricorn season. I will be coming back in February with an episode on the 36 things that I've learned in 36 years of living, because I'll be turning 36 in a couple of weeks. And I can't wait to be back with you next year. I can't wait to up level. Bye.